Well, good evening and welcome to the Mad River Valley Chamber of Commerce's Community Conversation Series. This evening's program is sponsored by the Sugarbush Resort and Waitsfield Champlain Valley Telecom, as well as the 175 chamber member businesses. Be aware that Zoom has a 100 viewer limit, and if we reach that limit, it would be great if some of you could switch over to the YouTube link, and the URL can be found in the chat. Please note that this event will be streaming live on the Mad River Valley Chamber YouTube channel. And as I said, the URL is in the chat. And we want to thank our good friends over at Mad River Valley Television. Tony, nice work. He's making that possible. And it will also be replaying over the air on channel 44 later in the week. The purpose of our discussion tonight is to give the Mad River Valley community a mid-season report on how the ski season is going so far. Hopefully people are getting to go skiing. I was able to get out there today, and I know that Matt was up skiing. A lot of you hopefully were skiing today. So from a snow perspective, it's pretty darn good. But we also want to see how our skiers are doing, how they've altered their operational plans to mitigate the impacts of the pandemic on our community. And it's also designed to foster a dialogue with our residents, our second homeowners, and our valued visitors. After a brief update from each of the panelists, I will moderate a Q&A session. I have received some questions in advance, and I encourage folks to utilize that chat function to ask any additional questions that you may have. Please try to keep these questions brief. The last time we did this, some of them got a little rambly, so we'd really appreciate if you could be succinct with that. And we'll try to get to as many of those questions as possible. Please note that the ski area management and most of the employees are also residents of the Mad River Valley, and that many of the lodge owners live in the establishments that are their businesses. So they are every bit as concerned and protective of the Mad River Valley community and the safety as anyone else, and feel a deep sense of responsibility. And that's one of the reasons that they were really psyched to do this. And Matt and John and the folks in the lodging community have been, throughout this whole crazy time, have really been very open and honest and as forthcoming as they possibly can be, and we're really appreciative of that. So again, I just want to see real quick, we have about 30 folks. We're in pretty good shape. I think a lot of people are watching on YouTube, which is great. So hopefully we won't bump up against the 100 person limit. Again, if we do, if you could switch over to YouTube to let other folks, that would be great. But again, hopefully that won't be an issue. I'd like to introduce our panelists for this evening. John Hammond is the president of Sugarbush Resort. Hi, John. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Matt Lillard is the general manager of Mad River Glen. He is with us this evening as well. And we also invited back Sean Kramer. He and his wife, Farrell, are the co-owners of the 1824 House Inn. And Sean is the leader of our lodging association here at the Chamber. And he's here to represent the lodging businesses because I think a lot of people have questions about people traveling here and on, and I really appreciate Sean coming to join us this evening because he is pretty knowledgeable with all this stuff, probably more than he cares to be. So with that, I would like to introduce Matt Lillard from Mad River Glen to give a little brief statement on how things are going up at Mad River Glen.
Thank you, Eric, and thanks everybody for joining tonight. It's as a brief update for how Mad River is doing and managing our way through the pandemic season. I think a couple things to note. It's since we started getting snow, and now snow appears to come every other night or so, which is fantastic. The skiing has been really good. We finally got a chance to really test our systems and see how it's going. And a couple of things really pop out. I think we're really proud of my employees and our community skiers and how they managed their way through it so far. I think it's going really well. We have not had any, any cases or any outbreaks or anything along those lines. I think the other big thing to note is, we kind of call it a country club up there now, because I mean, we are limiting our skier visits to such an extent that, we just are never crowded. Even our big days with all the great snowstorms on the weekends, it feels very comfortable. And I think, it's an interesting dynamic of what's going on up there. But our guests have been really good about complying and, or at least attesting that they are. And our systems are working, which has been really, really great to see. I think the other good thing is, it certainly helps to get snow every couple nights and have such great conditions, but everybody's remaining really positive. And while, I can't say that we, aren't worried about things and where they can go, we all feel really good up on the mountain about how it's all working out. And really appreciate the fact that we've got such a great community of skiers and in our community here to make it all happen. So that's, generally where we stand right now. And, we're coming into the heart of what will probably be the busiest week or so of the season. Then we start seeing spring and to some degree light at the end of the tunnel. But we certainly don't want to wish that away yet. We're on, I think, day 53 for Mad River of what should be about a 113-day season as it appears right now. So we're almost at the halfway mark. And that's, it feels really good.
Well, thanks, Matt. I appreciate you filling us in on things. I was up there today and I realized that it wasn't that crowded. And I thought that was just because I wasn't the marketing director anymore.
Yeah, no, it's well, the other interesting thing I'd note is the consistency of our skier traffic. Mm-hmm. The ski industry has had a goal of growing midweek skier visits for a really long time. It all takes is a pandemic, not to make light of the situation, but Wednesdays are darn close to our busiest day of the week. And a lot of that's Wednesday afternoon, quite frankly. I think kids are getting out of their homeschool or out of their remote day and their parents are taking the day off and people are coming up. But Wednesdays and Sundays are our busiest days. And that's quite frankly, you look at who's there and just walking around, you feel like you're in the Mad River Valley and amongst, friends and neighbors. And it's a comforting feeling.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Matt. John Hammond, what's going on over at Sugarbush?
Well, first of all, I have to say that I totally agree with Matt. I went over there on Monday and I think I knew every single person that was skiing, and I actually got to take a run with you, Eric. So it was good to get away from Sugarbush for a couple hours and go see what our neighbors are up to. So everything looked really good over there, Matt, and really appreciate the work you guys are doing. Over here, it's really the same thing. I've been super impressed with our employees and the guests and how they're complying by the rules and really looking out for one another. And we're 100% open. Conditions have been great. And really, the only downside we're seeing to the operation is sort of the a little bit lack of camaraderie that we normally would get. When you get to have dinner with people and sort of get to enjoy your ski day and ride the chair with other people. But, I think all in all, everyone's spirits have been great. And, we're out there skiing and trying to get as much enjoyment of it out of this year as we can. So.
All right. Thanks a lot, John. Again, we also have Sean from Sean Kramer from the 1824 house. Sean, as I said, is the leader of our lodging group. And can you fill the community in on how things are going for the lodges these days?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Now that we have snow, it's a little better. Is a good way to put it. We're still dealing with all the same things that we were at the beginning of the pandemic, I guess, but it does seem that with the ski resorts having to have the certificate of compliance filled out ahead of time, it's actually helped the lodging community a bit because they're not as surprised when they call us to make a reservation. That the travel restrictions are known a little more now, and obviously it's been a little longer time now that they hopefully are starting to figure it out. But that's helped, I think, the lodging community a lot, that we're not having to say no quite as much as we've had to in the past. to the guests wanting to come to the area, which we're in this for the hospitality industry. It was getting pretty tough to say no to everybody. So it's nice that now that the resorts are open, and we've got the snow, people seem to be, understanding the rules a little more. And what's great is that talking to the lodging community, everybody has talked about how the guests have been really happy with the way things are going at both resorts. We've had skiers at both, and there have been no complaints about really what's happening and any of the rules, or we'll call them restrictions, that they're having to deal with, while skiing. Some things might be a little inconvenient or different than they used to be, but overall, the skiing is what they're here for, and they're happy to be out on that mountain. And so, little extra social distancing or having a mask on is just not that big a deal to them at this point, which is great.
Thanks a lot, Sean. I appreciate your views on things. I guess we'll get started with some of the questions that I've received in advance. And please, as a reminder, if anyone that's listening in has any questions that they'd like added to this, to the list, please just put them in the chat. And as I said, try to be as succinct as possible. And we'll try to wade through as many of them as we can. So I'll kick this off for you, John. So what have you learned so far about helping to keep our community safe, which frankly starts with your employees, right? With a few months into the season, what has been the biggest surprise to you, and what are you most proud of?
Well, I think, so what we have to do, obviously, it's everyone's responsibility, and it only works if we're all in it together. And so that's been sort of our goal all along, is to try and get as much information out as possible, try and be as transparent as we can with our employees, with the guests as they're coming up, so everyone understands how we can do it and how we navigate the rules and how we can do it safely. It's a 24/7 problem to be solved. So, it doesn't just happen while you're out skiing. We need to make sure that we're communicating to our guests and to our employees that, transmission happens at any point in time. If you're at the grocery store, if you're, riding in the car with somebody else. So, like the masks and the rules that are out there are there for a reason, and really trying to reinforce that those things need to be followed. And that's why I think Vermont has really done a really good job compared to some other states, is that, I think we all do take it very seriously. And the people that come up here seem to be understanding, that it's a special place up here. And that's why we need to comply by the rules and really make sure we're taking care of one another. I think I've been really impressed by our community and by the employees and their willingness to get out there and really, it's never a great job to sit there 5,000 times in a day to remind someone to put their mask up over their nose as opposed to right on their nose, or to, get the same questions over and over again. And, my office is right next to the ticket window, and I hear like Barb on the phone all day long, just like, nope. So this is what you need to do. And, the patience and just like the dedication to the job these guys have it's blown me away. And I've really been impressed by the employees and their, the ability to sort of walk people through the guidelines and how to do stuff. So it's been really, it's been an interesting year so far.
Excellent. Thanks, John. Matt, what have you guys learned over at Mad River about helping to keep our community safe, and what has surprised you, and what are you most proud of?
Certainly, I think I'd echo, many, if not all, if not all of the comments that John just had. I think it's, the biggest thing that we've learned, that we stress, especially among our employees, is that, we have all these policies at work, and we need to make sure that we're following them in all parts of our lives and doing it together. And that's really the only way this is going to work, is that, people need to be vigilant all the time, and they're buying into it, which is great. They want a long season. They want to be working. It's been a good process, and showing our employees that we're there for them, and that if something does come up, then we're going to take care of them. If they're in a situation where they've been in close contact or otherwise, they know that they've got, our help in getting through it, and their ability not to come to work and still have a paycheck in varying degrees has been, I think, very beneficial for us and for our employees to know that. And so I think overall that's been, the most important thing to reinforce and to learn is that we're all in it together. And it's not just what happens on the ski mountain, that this thing, the minute it gets in, we've got systems in place not for it to spread, but we want to make sure it doesn't get in anywhere. So we need to keep on that. Like the biggest surprise is that, in talking to people in businesses and managers and owners that were running summer businesses, they mentioned that they had times where, they had customers that, simply weren't buying in. And whether they were vocal about it or otherwise, it can become a problem. And knock on wood, we have not seen that yet. We've not had to deal with that, which has been really great. And I think a lot of that is, our messaging has been very strong from the beginning, both at Sugarbush and Mad River about, the attestation and what the policies are. And I think people know when they get to the valley that we're serious about this, and we just need to keep reinforcing that. And overall, like I said, like John said, and I've said before, I'm proud of our employees and our broader community for doing what's necessary to keep us skiing.
Yeah, it hasn't been easy on the staff, and just being up at Mad River and Sugarbush and just skiing around and knowing a lot of the staff, it hasn't been an easy season. And so if you're out on the lift lines or you've seen them, give them a thumbs up for sure. Sean, anything that has been surprising to you from the lodging perspective, or that you weren't quite aware of, or things that you're proud of?
Nothing too surprising. I guess the biggest surprise for the time, though, is just how the community is rallied together. The lodging community has really pulled together during this whole time, and we've actually tried to really be impactful in every other sort of sector as well, whether it be because we know how integral we are. So we're always worried about whether it is the resorts or the restaurants or even the grocery stores. We're integral in the community. So I think it's just the way we pulled together and really tried to help everybody out has really been great. So
excellent. Well, thanks, Sean. With concerns about the spread of the virus down south in Bennington and Rutland counties, there are thoughts that the ski areas are drawing people who are infected. While the act of skiing itself is pretty safe, are there more aggressive steps that you feel you and the community could be taking to ensure that the Mad River Valley is not impacted like areas like Manchester, for example?
Oh, I'll take this one, John. I think one of the key things, and as ski area owners or general managers or what have you, we are in constant contact with the state, with our state association, and trying to keep our ear to the ground about where cases are happening. Are they popping up at ski areas? Is there spread at ski areas? And we're proud to say there has not been any linked spread to ski areas. So there's been, like I said, there has not been any link to that. So I think, the one thing we need to keep in mind is that as a community, we need to stay on top of this. And, you hear stories that maybe mask wearing is not as prevalent down in those counties as they might be farther up here in the Mad River Valley. And if that is in fact true, I think that speaks to why they saw the increases that they saw. I think when Washington County was having a lot of cases, those were not linked, to ski areas and open businesses. They were linked to private gatherings and things people were doing in their own home. And I believe that continues to still be the case. I'm certainly not at the state level that tracks all of that, but if it was happening at ski areas, we would hear about it, and we haven't yet. So. I think that the main thing we need to do is just stay on top of our protocols and what we've been doing, and caring for each other and making sure we do that. At the same time, I think we as ski areas and our marketing departments need to continue to do what we've done, which is just hammer home how much, how important these things are to us, and that we take it seriously. And whether that's reaching out to our pass holders, or, I did a video last week and John did as well, reminding people that if they're coming up for President's Week, you better have started your quarantine last week. Because you can't just decide to come up on Thursday or today or tomorrow. That's not how this works. And just not, we're not going to let that message die until the last day of the season.
And
Go ahead.
Matt, I do think it's really important that, what you stated, that Dr. Levine for the state has stated over and over that it is multi-household gatherings that have been the biggest problem throughout the pandemic and continuing to be. And it's not necessarily restaurants, the ski resorts or anything like that. It's multi-household gatherings that have been the biggest spreader.
I was just going to mention also that Ski Vermont just put out a PSA today about, how to get up to Vermont and actually comply by the rules, and, how to navigate the ski industry and get up here. And they did a really good job, but it was a collaborative effort done by all of the ski areas. We all had our PR people or different resorts added bits of the video in, and, we're on a weekly call together to sort of share best practices and what we're seeing, and if we're seeing a problem and how's it being handled. And, I think 2 weeks ago, we put sort of the drone footage out of our ski area on a Saturday, where it showed, like when you're in line and you're looking at it horizontally, it looks terrible. When you look at it above, it's actually, first of all, Andy took some beautiful pictures, but, it shows out the spreading of how people are, like, the ghost lanes are working, people's skis are actually working. So all of that. So trying to, we shared that, and then, I was on a phone call with Steamboat today, and they did the same thing. So, I think, it's not just in Vermont we're sharing this stuff. It's nationally that the ski areas are really working together to try and keep safe and, provide the best practices.
Excellent. This is an interesting question that someone gave, and it's come up to me. People have asked me this too. What ability do you folks have at the ski areas? Do you have to handle ski visitors who are clearly not quarantined? And has that come up, and how do you guys handle it?
It hasn't come up for us this winter. It definitely happened during the summer. And I think, to Sean's point, when it wasn't so prevalent that this was a requirement, we would get people that showed up at the front desk, and they would ask us, well, I need a room for tonight. And we're like, all right, well, have you met the quarantine restrictions? And they're like, what are you talking about? And we'd send them on the way. And same thing at the golf course. This summer we had, we did that a fair amount. We're really not seeing it this winter. And I think part of that is, I think we've sent out, probably hundreds of thousands of emails and all of the web messaging. And I think the state has done a good job, getting the information out there. So, we're not seeing it really coming up to us. It's a problem.
Yeah, well, I think, to speak directly to the question, I believe we are the only industry in the state that has wording in our guidance that, says we have the right to revoke skiing privileges. So that is, a potential stick that is out there. But as John said, we haven't, at Mad River, we haven't had that instance yet pop up where we would even consider something along those lines. I think that would be, people who are clearly and demonstrably and vocally ignoring the rules. It would be something that we could do. But other than that, it's much like the state guidance and travel restrictions as they stand. Is there's no, there is no big broader fine or punishment or jail time or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Has there been any talk, John? There had been, I'd heard from someone, and I got a question from, it was someone from Mad River Valley Ambulance Service saying that there was a person that they had to pick up, and they had acknowledged that they had been skiing in Colorado 2 days before. And their question was there any ability for you guys to utilize with an Icon Pass, be able to somehow restrict people that had been skiing out of state? And I know that's a big can of worms, but is that anything that you've ever looked at?
So the only incident I know about is a person out of South Carolina, but maybe we're mixing our stories. We did have a pretty long discussion with Mervis about that. This was found out when a person was hurt. And, the patrollers do a COVID questionnaire about, trying to do the COVID screening. Person answered yes, that they had not quarantined. And the question came back to us, you should revoke their passes and make them buy new passes. And my response was, I'd rather them be honest with us about that than not, than to lie to us. And it's the same thing as if, they responded to a drug overdose. You don't want to be like, what drugs are you taking? I need to call the cops. You want them to actually give you the honest truth about what's going on. So, we did look at that. We did do a follow up with that family and, explain to them what the rules were and that, obviously it was the end of their trip since they went in an ambulance. But, we haven't been punitive on that side. We really want to make sure people are following the rules, at least being honest to us about it if they did break them.
Yeah. This is a question that we got from a family that I know up at Mad River, and he prefaced it by saying how much he misses everyone in the valley. He wants to know, is there any talk of the state easing restrictions on out-of-state travelers? Other bordering states seem to be having no problem with out-of-state skiers. And he comments, please don't make me ski on New Hampshire anymore.
I would say first, thank you for abiding by the travel policies. And no, I have not heard, nor do I believe that there will be any easing before the end of the season. That's my personal, and professional opinion. That's exactly what we tell people who ask.
Yeah. I mean, the good news is the numbers have been trending down. I mean, the governor's press conference went over that. So, that's not our decision, but I think, we're in a position right now where what we're doing seems to be working. So I wouldn't want to break it.
Along the same lines, we had a question that says, how are you with the holidays coming up? How are you going to ensure that 10,000 skier per day, this is probably aimed at you, John, not Mad River. With 10,000 skiers, are you expecting to have quarantine, or are you going to continue using an honor system?
I don't know what the honors, but I can tell you what we're looking at for a forecast for the weekend. Obviously, last Saturday was our busiest day of the year. Most of the visitation spike that we saw was the college kids back in Burlington. We had over 1,000 college kids at Mount Ellen. We can tell because their passes are college passes. And it was the first time that these kids had been back and had, actually been in class for some of them. They didn't even have a fall semester. They were remote. So, we saw that as a pretty big spike, but we know coming into this weekend that a lot of our passes are blacked out for the holiday periods. So we don't anticipate, we actually expect this weekend, because of the temperatures and the blackouts on the passes, that we'll have fewer people here this weekend than we did last.
Excellent.
And I also have gotten some questions about if we're still limiting capacity on our day tickets. And I will tell you that, by putting an extremely high ticket price on there, it has been very effective in reducing the number of people that will come and pay for a ticket. And we have yet to even reach the capacity of the ticket sales. But, we are keeping an eye on that.
All right. Community members who have not visited the ski areas might not know that both Sugarbush and Mad River Glen have been fast on their feet to find creative ways to keep ski guests and employees safe while making the experiences of skiing during COVID more comfortable. John, tell us what the cabanas that were built and for rent in Sugarbush at Lincoln Peak have been going.
Yeah, so we built 6 little cabins. We put 4 at Lincoln Peak and 2 at Mount Ellen, and people can rent them. Again, sort of a learning curve on COVID. Initially we thought we would need to make all of these room changes and changeovers for the facilities inside because, with a 75-person capacity, how is this ever going to possibly work? And, I think most days we're lucky if we have 4 people inside. So we're not seeing that being a problem. But, we did these cabins. A family can rent them and have their own personal base lodge. And over the last couple of weeks, we've reduced the price on them, and they've really been selling it. I think they were all sold out on Tuesday, which is, a good day to ski and also a great day to have your own little personal base lodge.
Are they heated, John?
Yeah, they've got their own little propane heater and their SIPS panels, nice tight construction, and a local gentleman made custom maple tables for us with a Sugarbush inlay. It looks really nice.
That's cool. And Matt, tell us about how the snack shack in the base lodge in the base area has been going. in keeping skier traffic out of the base box?
Yeah, it's so we made the call to build this snack shack. I think it was November 5th, about a day or two after we got the guidance from the state. So it came together really fast. And we got it up and going right around the new year, and it's worked really well. We are seeing the same thing that John is, that we are worried about being overrun on inside space with the low limits, and that just simply has not been the case. People have been really good about using their car as their base lodge and coming for the 3, 4, 5 hour day and going home. What the snack shack enables us to do is to get them some food and libations outside without going in the lodge, so they can grab stuff and go home. With the current rules and what we can do, it's been great to team up with Lawson's and offer Mad River Still Single IPA out of that snack shack, because I think it's probably by far our best seller heading out of there. But it's been great, and I'm excited to see where that thing's going to end up in future years, because it came together really fast. We haven't really thought beyond that, but it's a heck of a building, and it works really well for us.
Yeah. Have there been have some of the other creative ideas that have come up? Well, one thing I wanted to ask though, to you, Matt, is there any way you can figure out a way to keep French fries warmer outside, because they get cold really fast?
Keep them faster. I've got the answer to that.
We originally we were going to sell French fries, and there was going to be a revolt. So it appears the kids will eat any soggy French fry.
Yep, there you have it.
Eric, I will say we did some other things. We added a bunch of fire pits, similar to the kind that Lawson's built, actually the same vendor. And then our Lawson's Castle Rock IPA has also been a top seller. We keep selling out of it, so that's always good to see. We did some outside takeout windows, and it's been crazy, the fact that it'll be 9 degrees outside and people will be sitting outside eating their food as if it was a normal occurrence. And if this was last year, there would not be a soul outside trying to consume anything. So it's great to see people, adapting to the environment.
Yeah, I will say, one of the things that we are looking at, as we come into the warmer spring months, is I think we had the concern of being overrun on inside space in the dead of winter. I definitely have the concern that we need to make sure people keep their guard up, keep their masks up, and keep their distance when the weather gets nice. Because as John was saying, that loss of community feel that is so strong in the valley and at our ski areas, really comes alive in the spring. And when that sun is pounding away on the deck of the base box, or on the deck at Mount Ellen, that's when we really feel that, and that's where it's going to probably hurt the most to not do those things. So, I think that's one of the messages that we're going to start flipping to as the weather gets better, is that while you're outside, you still can't do the things that you're not supposed to do, and make sure our messaging will be on point and our employees will be cognizant of it. But it certainly helps if the community helps us too, because it can be exhausting reminding people.
Yeah, two Sundays ago, there was an incredible temperature inversion where it was single digits at the base and high 20s at the summit. And it was crystal clear, beautiful day. And we were running into issues at the summit chair at Mount Ellen, where, it was like the first time you'd see the sun and people were like pulling their masks down and trying to get the sun on their face. It was like, no, everything needs to be up. Come on, guys. So I agree. We're going to have a different reminder that needs to happen once the weather makes a flip.
Excellent. One of the things, there's a great question on the chat. I've been really appreciative of the webcams that the ski areas have, just to see what's going on. And it's been interesting to see what has been going on and how things are looking. We have a question to you, John, about the camera views at Sugarbush have been frustrating, and wondering if that will be corrected.
Well, we did order some brand new cameras and looked at some locations, putting one at Allen's Lodge and one at the top of Heaven's Gate to try and give a little more panoramic view with some high quality point and zoom action. Really, that's the only addition that we're looking at for this year.
Excellent. Yeah, Matt, love the snow gauge cam, the Cabot snow gauge cam.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, it's certainly talked about, and I think every ski area has got different ways of approaching it. I think one of the things that people need to be aware of is that we are a ski community, for the most part, and we don't have a lot of people kind of staring at webcams and then emailing officials or whatever, but that's not always the case. And it can certainly, while it can be something that people really want to see, I think it brings a lot to the ski experience, especially for those that can't be there. It's also a pretty big liability when it shouldn't be. And but just because something shouldn't be so doesn't mean it's not. And so I certainly understand where we're at. And I think, for us, I've definitely told people, we're on camera, look up. Somebody is going to see you, with your mask down, and they're going to email somebody, and then we're not going to be skiing. So it's both a tool and a curse.
Yes, it absolutely does. I just remember from my days at Mad River being getting in trouble for people trying to not be at work and getting busted by their bosses and things. So, like I said, it can definitely cut both ways.
Well, for us, it's usually really long lift lines that people are seeing and going, "Well, look at that." But not that this year it's the opposite. I mean, our capacity is so low that we're just not seeing that.
Yeah. This is an interesting question, and we discussed this a little bit beforehand, and I'm reluctant to ask it, but I think it brings up the point about how you need to be wary of the news that's out there. What the question was that was sent in is that there are currently 11 outbreaks at ski resorts that are being blamed. And I find that hard to believe when lift lines are so long and crowded. Will you have any additional training for employees on how to deal with the higher risks? Any additional protections in place to help ensure employees' safety, to mitigate the risk to them and potentially infecting the community? John, you want to take that one on?
Well, I heard the beginning and the end, so I'll do with that. The middle got blocked out, but I think the 11 outbreaks, when we were talking about it earlier before this thing started, was reference to the article about Colorado, where they have 11 outbreaks at ski towns. And so I think that was, people will take stats like you have to load a chair at 50% of non-grouped parties. And it doesn't mean that my family can't all jump on a quad chair. It means that I can't ride a quad chair with more than one other person. So it's 50%. So I think, that people glom on to different tidbits of information out there, and, it gets a little bit skewed, but to the best of my knowledge, there are no outbreaks in Vermont ski areas at all. So I think we can dispel that part. And when you talk about the employee part of it, I think, we do a good job of, we have our employees wear masks. We have the ghost lanes set up. We have plexiglass shields. We've limited all of our payment as contactless, where you're swiping your own card or you're using an application to make your purchases. When I skied over at Mad River, you guys have little booths for your ticket checkers to sit in, so they're not out in the mix. I think, the areas have done a great job of protecting their employees. And I think that was most of your questions.
Yes. Yeah. And, one of the questions I had, this is something that I've been kind of wrestling with a little bit. And, as I've been talking to colleagues at other chambers of commerce and some of the ski resorts, the state travel restrictions in Vermont are pretty tight, and arguably as tight as they are as any state in the country. Do you guys think that there's any long-term impacts that these restrictions will have after everything's said and done in terms of people being turned off by the state of Vermont? I have my own feelings on this, which I'll express, but I'm curious to know what you guys, if you've thought about that.
Yeah, I think, well, Sean can take this one. There's a couple of things here, I'd say COVID continues to surprise me. I'd say probably us at every bend. So, I think a couple of things are going to come out of this. I think there's a potential for a monstrous demand next year, assuming that this thing passes with some reasonableness. But I do think, I'm not sure the state travel restrictions are going to be a long-term problem, but I think we do as Vermonters and in a ski community and one that relies heavily on tourism and we want to share what we have. We need to make sure as a community that we are being as welcoming as we can be while still stressing that we care about these restrictions and care about ourselves and everybody. And by that I mean we can't be a community in a state that's seen as jumping on out-of-staters and out-of-state plates. I don't think it bodes well for who we are as a state and as people. So it's just something that I stress with my employees the same thing, because everybody gets worked up, and that's all well and good, but we need to make sure that we realize what kind of business we're in and what we are as a state generally, and make sure that we're not getting too aggressive with it, because I think that could hurt the tourism as a whole for this whole state of Vermont if we are seen as in the long run people that shunned everybody else and only took care of ourselves and did it aggressively.
I think Sean could probably talk about wedding season and sort of the other long-term effects, but
Yeah, I mean, there are going to be some long-term effects. Hopefully the state overall can help us market it after this, once again, we'll call it clears up, or we turn the corner. Because there is a lot of negative sentiment out there about Vermont, the ski areas in Vermont, the lodges, properties in Vermont. I've seen it on both of your guys' social media where you're just trying to show a nice picture of, a bluebird day. And someone's like, well, I can't be there because I'm from New Jersey. And well, that's not what we said, and that's not what the state said either. So we got to hopefully, as a community and as a state, kind of turn that message around when we have the opportunity to let people know that, we truly are back open. Not that we've ever fully closed, but we did have restrictions, but those restrictions were put in place for a reason. And our numbers have overall shown it with COVID that we've been one of the cleanest states, if not the cleanest state throughout this whole time. So, as much as we'd love to just invite everybody back into the state or have everyone come and have no restrictions, I don't think any of us would really be all that happy with that either. So hopefully the long term, it'll probably be middle term where I think we're gonna have a little bit of an issue, but then hopefully long term we get back to letting people understand what Vermont's all about. And that'll help us. And yeah, wedding season's going to be tough this year again. We're on calls weekly about it, and that's going to be difficult. And I know Sugarbush is having the same issues, that people who switched from last year to this year are now possibly maybe canceling. And what we're really trying to do, and the lodging and the wedding industry is really trying to push the state to start giving guidelines that will work with some metrics and give some planning ability to just travelers in general, but to those weddings, hopefully in summer and fall, that they can still kind of plan things ahead of time, not be last minute. So be just transparent with the restrictions going forward.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ron.
I mirror that. I think, when you looked at what Maine did in the summer, they set out very explicit, clear guidelines on how you could have a wedding, how you could host a function, what you could do. It was a much more inviting how-to option given out versus I think we spent our tourism dollars on quarantine signs that say "Don't come here." So there's a good education piece that we could be doing with some of these tourism dollars versus just telling people to you're not allowed to come here, and we need to make sure our community and our employees and everyone is treating everyone with respect and being the welcoming area that we are.
Yeah, I think it's some really good points. And one of the things that I'd like to say, and before I say this, let me just say, if anyone else has any questions that's involved in the call, please put them in the chat now, because we're going to start winding down. I've been involved in a lot of meetings with ACDC and the ACCD. Oh my God, I can't believe I said that. Right, rock on. ACCD and some lobbying efforts from businesses with, regard to wet and the ski areas as well. And what I think's been kind of interesting is, I think there's some people out there that think that the business community just wants to open things up. And that's really not the case. I think the only gripe that the business community has, I think the business community has really bought into what the governor and the administration's been trying to do. And I think are very proud of the fact that Vermont has been as successful as we have been to date. And I'm not better understanding of the fact that they need to for people to kind of figure things out and to plan for things and to make sure that they don't get snap judgments like the skiers. I don't think a lot of people realize that when, in November, that the skiers got handed rules to operate very late in the game that they were not expecting. I think what the businesses are really hoping for is, for the example of the wedding, saying some kind of metric, say if we can get our infection rates down to X level, and if we could get the X number of people vaccinated, then we would do this. So we can kind of have a sense of it. And I think that's the big gripe that that businesses have, and they're trying to to get that word out to the legislature and to the administration. So it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out. Any thoughts on that at all? I'm not putting it in the spot. The other thing,
I think you're right. I mean, I think, and it's gotten better. I think from the ski industry's perspective, we now have through our organization almost weekly calls with state officials that are informing us of what they're thinking, what their concerns are, and we didn't have that last fall, despite putting a draft plan out back in August and then waiting. So as with everything in business and life, communication is of utmost importance, and being open about what where they're headed, what they're thinking, what we can do to help them. And doing it collaboratively is by far the best solution. So, I'm certainly hopeful that continues, and now our not necessarily Mad River, but the broader industry, their sites are looking more towards spring and summer, because there's a lot of ski areas that have businesses and parts of their business that are focused on that, and we need that same collaboration to continue working and not get guidance on the summer, June 3rd.
Yeah. Yeah, excellent. And I think, like I said, just to kind of go over that, is that I think a lot of businesses are looking for more guidance and less grants. That they're hoping that if they can get good guidance, they can do proper planning, and that will mean that they won't necessitate getting grants down the line because that money can't all last forever. And I think that businesses are realizing that. So. We have a question on the chat line. Once spring is here, will resorts add more tables, chairs, etc., outside for people to eat and drink outside, keeping a safe distance? And will you be able to keep French fries warmer?
Yes, and yes.
I'll go yes, and hopefully.
On the French fries.
Exactly.
No, I think the only thing we can do with that is take John's advice and eat faster. So.
I'll say we'll definitely make sure the beer is cold.
Well, there's going to be plenty of snow to stick it into, right?
Eric, it's way too early to say that. You've been in the industry too long.
Yes, we could.
No, I think on your point regarding grants, I think as people that operate businesses, none of us want to be relying on grants to support. Yeah. But at the same time, we certainly appreciate and need our legislatures and other people to know that the rules that we're dealing with, we're going to need support, whether it's now or in the future. You can't run a business cutting capacity and doing what we're doing to the extent that we are and expect not to hurt.
Yeah, that's actually brings up a good question, Matt. Can you guys touch on, and Sean as well, how have the federal programs What have they meant to you guys? Have you been able to take advantage of those things? Is it going to be able to help the ski areas and the lodges in the long run?
Well, it's kept us here so far. That's probably the biggest thing. I, I'm sure they have other, thoughts on this, but like PPP and the EIDLs, loans, that was all big, but they are loans. They have to be repaid. So that's a big deal. The grant money that came through towards the end of the year, I know for a lot of the lodging industry, that was huge for us. But that only got us through kind of, a few months of last year, realistically, those numbers. We got it. I think we got the money in December, but that was only through September that those numbers really dealt with. So we already had a couple more months under our belt of dealing with these restrictions before we even got that money. And now we're obviously moving forward. And if the restrictions stay in place, we're still going to be needing, help in some way. And the other thing to remember, though, is there's no federal money left. So the state doesn't have anything to give us from the federal government. That is going to be something that has to be taken up with the federal government to make sure that more money comes down the pipeline later if this continues on the way it is. And especially with wedding season and things like that for the lodging industry, because even if you don't host weddings, the lodging industry really relies on the wedding industry in Vermont to bring those people into the state. That's where our lodging comes from for a lot of it. And so that's really important. But, the state did a great job. I've heard from other people in other states that they weren't getting grants. Let's just say that. And some of the industries weren't even touched at all. So I think Vermont does understand that tourism is a big deal here. It's what we have. It's what Vermont's about. So that's my 2 cents.
A lot of the grants, if you're a bigger business, you don't qualify.
Yeah.
So I can speak from experience on that, which is fine. But so I think there's going to be the grant money and PPE and CARES Act stuff is really helpful. And there were some scary specific grants that we did apply for. They were oversubscribed. So we were able to receive that, and I believe Matt, you were as well. But ultimately, we joke that we've never worked harder to lose more money than this year. So, but we're still trying. So that's what we're up against.
Yeah, very true though on that statement.
That's a good bumper sticker. Still trying to lose money. But I think, luckily, not luckily, but being a smaller ski area, we are able to take advantage of more of those things like Sean and some of the lodging community as far as PPP loans. And I think for us, it's been life-saving, almost literally, because without that, we wouldn't be able to have some of the programs and the safety precautions. We would have found a way, but it would have hurt to the point of, catastrophic potentially for our business. So having that support enables us to, have programs in place to make sure employees are taken care of if they need to stay home because they've been in contact or, have the sniffles or any combination thereof. And then the specific grants for COVID safety related items that the ski industry got, while it was very overprescribed and certainly not enough, what was beneficial in helping us get a lot of that stuff.
Like the sick pay that Matt was just talking about, like we don't qualify for that, but we still did it for our employees.
Okay.
So we're trying to go the extra mile on that stuff. Work harder to lose more money.
Well, I think it's important to note that you're doing it for your employees, but that also in turn makes a better experience for the guests who do come.
Absolutely.
They're not worried about, an employee who's in the lift line, who does have the sniffles, as little as that is. But it all goes back to that experience for them, even though it's trying to keep our employees safe and things like that. So it's important all the way around.
Absolutely. Well, we've run out of questions here and it's been almost an hour. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to join in and have this conversation with our community. Actually, one last one just came in. Do you feel that the state is focused on tourism now? I can touch that one.
Go for it, Eric.
No, I don't think they are. I mean, I think that they are trying to use the federal funds in as smart a way as they can that will have long-lasting impacts and getting assets and developing and not wasting money to try to get people to come here when they can't come here. I think they've been really smart with that. And I've been a very strong critic of state marketing over the years. And I've been really pleased to see that the new commissioner, Heather Pelham, really is trying to make these dollars last into the future and to husband those resources for when we can hit the ground running and be ready to go. So I don't know if you guys have anything you want to add to that.
I mean, I would agree that the state is not focused on tourism right now. It's not their key focus, which is understandable. They have, COVID's a bigger deal right now than tourism. Even though, I'm in the tourism industry. I think it's really important what they're doing. And so, no, I don't think it's their biggest focus. And hopefully it will be more long-term, like you said, though, using those dollars to get people back later.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I think one of the other things that, that I kind of have taken away from this whole experience is the fact that, it goes back to the question that I asked a little while ago about the long-term impacts of this. One of the things I think has been valuable is that people in the United States and around the world are seeing Vermont on as number one in the world, in the country, for handling this crisis. And that being on the top of that list day after day, month after month, for going on a year now, I think says a lot about our state. And I think that it's very, and I hate saying this, is on brand with what Vermont is all about, and that we're about people over profits, and that we care about our community and we care about our environment. And I think that those are the sorts of things that that have if we do it right, have the opportunity to make some positivity out of this whole situation. So we'll see what happens with that, but I think there is something to be said for that.
Yeah. Well, I think just seeing the chat, I will say I do think the state is, I'm not going to say hyper focused, but is certainly looking at tourism in the ski industry as a potential risk factor. So, they are not turning a blind eye by any stretch of the imagination. And I think as area operators and owners, and also as area skiers, I think everybody needs to know that there is an eye on us and that we need to be vigilant and not let our guard down, and know that, whether it's the state or people informing the state, either right or wrong, they are hearing. And generally, I think they're hearing more bad things. I don't think they're necessarily accurate, but that's what they're hearing. So, I think there is a focus on us. I'm not necessarily positive at the exact moment. And I think, we've got a busy time coming up, and, we got it. I really, quite frankly, want to get through the next 2 weeks.
I would also just add that there's a lot of those state employees and legislators are skiers as well. And they come to the Mad River Valley to recreate. So, not only do we see it from the enforcement side, but we also see it that it's foremost in their sort of mindset of what's going on. So I think we hear it on multiple fronts. So I know that when I was out doing mask control in one of the lift lines, I ran into the head of VOSHA, and he, out skiing, and, so he was keeping an eye on us just like that.
Yep. Well, thank you, John, and thank you, Matt and Sean, for joining us. And I appreciate everyone that joined in on this conversation, and as well as watched on the YouTube channel. It will be recorded. It is being recorded and will be available on Channel 44, and we'll do links from our social media as well. But I think this is really valuable, and I think we're planning on doing another one at the end of the season to do a wrap up. And that's a heads up, John. But I think that, these conversations are valuable, and the feedback that we've gotten from them has been great. The next one that we're hoping to do is going to talk about specifically about the lodging sector, which I think arguably has been hit harder than any other sector in our economy. And I think that there's a lot of interest in finding out what they're up to and how they've been able to navigate through this whole crisis. But thank you again for your participation. Be safe out there, and go skiing. The conditions are fabulous. So thanks to you guys for making it safe for us.
Eric, you got to get a plug to the lodging establishments. We can't go anywhere else. You might as well go stay at Sean's place. And,
Yeah, exactly.
get a good night's sleep.
Vacation.
And put your mask above your nose.
And
Thanks, everyone.
maybe if you spent too much time with your spouses, maybe one of you can go to one of the local lodges just to get away for a little bit.
The perfect Valentine's Day gift.
There you go. Well, thanks so much, everyone. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you around. Thanks for your time.
Great job, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.